Cucumber Man. I can never remember his name. Cumberbatch. Cumberbatch. Cumberbutt. What's his name?
Ricardo Montalban.
Montalban. Montalban.
Hello and welcome to Trekkie Tuesdays, where we are here to discuss space scenes.
Con! That does not happen in this episode.
Nope.
Negative.
Space scene. Really interesting episode. A lot going on with this one. A sleeper ship, which is an old sci-fi concept, may become reality someday. It's a lot more realistic than faster than light travel as a way that people could colonize other planets. The idea is that you make a spaceship and you put humans on it in cryonic suspension or something like that, and send it to a place that's will take centuries of travel to get to, and then set them to automatically be revived somehow. That's the tricky bit. So they come across a ship that was launched in the 90s where they were doing a lot of that. End up accidentally waking up Khan, and are able with difficulty to nurse him back to health. And so they discover that he is not only from the 20th century, but he is a product of selective breeding and eugenics. They didn't quite have the concept of the genetically engineered super being yet, so this is just a selectively bred super being. Somehow, in the generation in between when this aired and when he's supposed to come from, they selectively bred somebody who has superhuman strength and intelligence. Don't really know how they thought that could possibly make sense. But he insists that they revive his crew members and ends up taking over the Enterprise with the help of the ship's historian, who becomes fascinated with him. But then she betrays him, and Kirk takes over the ship again, and then he decides to have mercy and let all the super beings plus the briefly traitorous historian settle a planet.
There's lots of talk about sort of ethnicities in this episode that's basically about eugenics, which could make you freak out a lot, and kind of you do a little bit. Fortunately, they were open-minded to not make the super being white. I think that was pretty forward thinking, although to do otherwise at that time, I think, would have sent a pretty clear, freaky message.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I didn't live through that time. But anyway, so
apparently it's totally fine to make Khan white now. By the way, J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Anyway, back to Khan. Khan is supposed to be a Sikh from like North India, but he looks kind of like a Native American to me. Different kind of Indian. I guess we're just like, oh, whatever, Christopher Columbus, they're all the same. I don't know what the story is with that. I don't know. And then they like make a point to say that they have like every race represented in this like superhuman.
Yeah, and most of them are mixes.
As
Scotty puts
they
it.
refer to people as Oriental. So it's like they're trying to be open-minded, but then it's just, you're like, ew. But that's kind of like, you can write that off as like 60s, whatever. I don't know, to me I'm kind of like, well, it wasn't as bad as it could be, I guess. And there are some cool moments, like Uhura is basically like being really defiant and like not giving the communications issue stuff, but then they just like beat her, and it brings out this like really weird image, and you're like, this just doesn't feel right. But at the same time, she's like totally rocking it, but then the white lady saves her, and you're like, eh.
So despite the fact that everybody there is a blended mixed race, the person who then beats Uhura is very white. Han is able to like sexually dominate the ship's historian with his animal magnetism. Which is I think the racial part is that they think that like a Sikh who has like inherent mystic testosterone stuff that the historian says all Sikhs are great warriors. Um, but then B uh, he pulls her into this this patriarchal gender role thing by immediately saying what men in the 70s and 90s would say to women, which is your hairstyle is wrong. It's not sexy enough. She says, but it's comfortable. So he says you must let down your hair because it pleases me to have it down, and then actually like grabs her and starts undoing her hair a little while making her watch him in the mirror.
It's a really controlling. Their whole dynamic is really terrifying. It's like really hard to watch. I think anybody who has any kind of history of abuse should not like watch this show. This is not a healthy relationship in any way, shape, or form. And then Kirk is like, well, let's just like let her live with Khan on this planet that we will never visit again. What could go wrong? Okay, girl, choice between this abusive, evil man and court martial.
Just her other option.
And I think we're supposed to read that as like romantic.
So then there's also imperialism, which again the show is trying to critique and show that people have moved beyond, but in a way that is still like very noticeably influenced by that. So, the eugenics people are all super ambitious because they're Supermen and because apparently that inevitably leads to being evil warlord people. And they want a planet to conquer. McCoy's like, well, it's easy to conquer a planet if you have a starship. Sportsmanlike. Kirk says, well, there's a habitable planet near here. It's never established whether or not it is inhabited. Spock points out that it's inhospitable terrain, and Kirk compares it to Botany Bay, the first colony in Australia by the British. He says that the people there landed in inhospitable terrain and then went on to tame that continent with no acknowledgement of the fact.
Oh, see, I thought that Khan was in that penal colony, but I guess that they're just referring it.
Yeah, the ship was named the Botany Bay because he was like comparing it to a penal colony. But
that's really bad. Now that I learned that, there are a lot of weird, terrible things about this episode. I mean, it's like on sort of a surface level, it's not as boring as some of the other ones, but it's kind of icky. It makes you feel pretty squicky. It's not. Ugh.
Yeah.
Like it's not good.
No, but it's riveting. You can't look away from a lot of the scenes. Like the bits where Kirk and Spock are just kind of jawboning on the bridge are fairly forgettable, but they like Ricardo Montalban plays Khan definitely brings this quiet intensity to the scenes that
it's very powerful.
The scene where he first wakes up and faces off against McCoy is great. They've got kind of similar energies as like the.
No, McCoy is way less energy. McCoy is a terrible actor, in my opinion. He brings nothing to any scenes. But Khan does a good job, I thought. I don't like his character or anything, but most people in Star Trek appear a little hokey. And he really, you know, makes the most of this role as an evil person. Um, Except I don't even think we're supposed to think of him as that evil. Like, I think the viewer is just supposed to think of him as like ambitious and like overly powerful and like just needs a separate space, which I mean makes me think like if this episode, what was this? This is like the late 1960s. What is going on? But like all of this civil rights stuff and like separate and equal and all this crazy shit going on. I mean, obviously
man,
he's
is
not
City
like.
Alpha 5 like Liberia? Is that?
I wonder if like finding another planet for this native animalistic like overly powerful takes your women character is really some sort of underscript for something else. I mean, I think Kirk and him leave on sort of a mutual respect but never want to see each other kind of ever again, which like I don't know, maybe that reflects some of the feelings of the time of like, all right, just like let me go and I will stop acting all militant apparently. You know, who knows? I would love to see somebody else who really knows what this episode is about because I feel like it's about a lot of weird things. I don't know if we're doing it justice. I don't really want to watch it again to find out though because it's too gross. But
real contrast to the previous episodes where they're trying their damnedest to like not take the current racial tensions and project them into the future.
They're trying to be very colorblind in general in Star Trek. Like they're trying to not acknowledge. I mean, Star Trek is great. If you want to know why race is socially constructed and you want to know what that means, I think Star Trek is a great example of that because here is a place where everything seems so. I mean, on the one hand, they're creating this future where race basically doesn't exist, right? But then at the same time, there's like some semblance of multiculturalism. Like, you know, we know that Uhura speaks Swahili, although it like never comes up. And you know, there are a few minor acknowledgments, but in general, colorblind. That's the future. That's what Star Trek is projecting. But then, of course, it's made by people who, like, of course, are not colorblind and can't be colorblind and probably shouldn't be colorblind, and so they're then infusing all of this other weird stuff all the time, and because we're in a different place culturally than we were before. Not saying we're perfect, not saying we're better even sometimes, but it feels noticeable. You know, calling people, you know, by what ethnicity they are. Oh yes, this ship contains an of those of Oriental and Latin. What did they say? Like I don't even remember. They just had all these phrases, and you're like, oh, like what? Like it's pretty jarring. So clearly, we're not in a colorblind society in space either. I mean, for the time, maybe I don't even know. Like I don't even want to say that. I'm not even gonna go there.